Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, Kenya's top court blocks President Uhuru Kenyatta's bid to change the constitution. The controversial Building Bridges Initiative, or BBI, was proposed as a way to make politics more inclusive. The judges rule it to be unconstitutional. Also, Tunisia's main opposition party rejects President Kais Saied's dissolution of parliament and vows to boycott his planned referendum. The assembly was dissolved after over 100 MPs took part in an online vote against the leader's 2021 power grab. And South Africa's Khoi communities split on how to best protect their heritage on a site in Cape Town, earmarked to house Amazon's African headquarters. Judges ordered a stop to construction, but some of the indigenous locals are eager for the jobs the development might bring. But first, Kenya's Supreme Court has dealt a blow to President Uhuru Kenyatta and his allies ahead of this year's elections. Judges have ruled that his Building Bridges initiative, which proposed to change the constitution to introduce a new post of prime minister and increase the number of parliamentary seats, is illegal. Bastien Renouy has more.
Kenya's Supreme Court 7 judges in a majority judgment upheld a finding by lower courts that President Uhuru Kenyatta initiated the Building Bridges initiative through a constitutional provision that is reserved for citizens and not for executive leaders like him. According to the judges, the BBI should have been led by citizens and not by the head of state. It's a huge blow for President Uhuru Kenyatta and his ally Raila Odinga, who is running for presidency in August. Both men have been campaigning for the BBI, saying that it would be more inclusive and that it would lead to less political violences, especially during elections. On the other side, it's a big win for Deputy President William Ruto, who's also running for the election and who's been clashing publicly several times with President Kenyatta over the proposal. According to him, the BBI would give too much power to the president and it would scrap any opposition. Raila Odinga said he accepts the judge's decision, but according to him, the BBI is only upheld. He says that Kenyans should deliberate on the way forward and decide on future ways of actions.
Tunisia's main opposition party said that at least 30 MPs have been questioned by anti-terror police after an online vote against President Kais Saied's power grab last year. After the session, the leader dissolved parliament. Laura Berstecker has more.
Barbed wire and barricades blocked off access to Tunisia's parliament a day after President Kais Saied announced its dissolution. In the streets of the Tunisian capital, many residents appeared to have lost trust in a political class by which they feel abandoned.
They're only thinking of themselves. They decide things together and don't care about the people.
They've done nothing for us for the past 10 years. Life has become unbearable now with all these price hikes.
Back in July, Kais Saied suspended parliament and months later granted himself extraordinary powers to rule by decree. The moves sparked the ire of the opposition, which accused the president of harboring authoritarian ambitions. And on Wednesday, over 120 MPs defied the suspension of parliament, holding a virtual session in which they voted to annul Saied's emergency powers. Hours later, the president denounced an attempted coup and the dissolution of parliament. But head speaker and opposition leader Rached Ghannouchi refused to recognize the move and called it an attack on Tunisia's institutions.
The president does not have the constitutional right to dissolve the parliament. This decision is null and void because it contradicts the constitution.
The latest standoff threatens to plunge Tunisia further into a deepening political deadlock, the outcome of which appears increasingly uncertain.
In Ivory Coast, the government's fixed the price of bread. The move was in response to growing complaints that bakers were selling smaller loaves, but faced with the rising cost of wheat, particularly in the wake of the war in Ukraine, they say they had no choice but to make adjustments. Hanan Ferjani has more.
opted for a more strict control of the baguette price in relation to its weight. From now on, Ivorians will have to choose between two sizes, 174 and 232 grams for a set price of 150 and 200 CFA francs. According to the government, this will ensure that bakers don't take any liberty with pricing. But some bakers and consumers weren't so happy with the new measure, as they believe the government should rather focus on subsidizing.
If the price of flour keeps rising, it will be as if nothing has been done. Bakers will continue to suffer. I would like the government to take this into account.
They're paying more for the raw material. They have to earn something. But I think the government has to make up for the loss. They have to cushion the production costs that keep increasing.
Others told us that the new fixed prices are still too high for the customer.
150 francs is just too expensive. We would have preferred a baguette at 100 francs so that everyone could have access.
Everything is more expensive. Nothing ever goes down. So let them try to solve the issue of the flour price so that bakers and those who consume bread can keep on going.
In just a year, the price of a wheat ton has doubled in the country, a surge that should not stop anytime soon. Ivory Coast imports parts of its wheat from Russia. As of June 2021, it was the second largest customer of French soft wheat outside the EU and the United Kingdom.
Look, now it's a news in brief. The Nigerian Football Federation's technical director and almost the entire men's senior national team coaching staff have been sacked. The Super Eagles failed to earn a place at the World Cup after their surprise defeat by Ghana. The NFF said that they'll be announcing a new crew to reinvigorate the national team after an in-depth review. Passenger trains travelling between Abuja and the northern city of Kaduna will be escorted by the military. The government's trying to up security along the route in the wake of an attack by gunmen on the high-speed line this week, in which 8 people were killed and several hostages were taken. Hundreds of people took part in an anti-migrant march through Johannesburg on Thursday. The rally in Hillbrow was by a vigilante group known as Operation Judula. Campaigners say that migrants are being scapegoated for the country's economic troubles. The leader of Operation Judula was arrested last week, and his group has been linked to violent attacks on African foreigners in the past. Their rallies have sparked counter-protests by anti-xenophobia activists. Now, over the last decade, thousands of Malian refugees fleeing jihadist attacks have sought shelter in Niger. Many are in the region of Tiliberi, hoping to see an improvement to insecurity in their homeland. But the withdrawal of French troops and their allies has left Malians stranded in camps, uncertain as to when they'll be able to return. Our correspondents report.
Since the beginning of the year, jihadist attacks and criminal gangs have multiplied near the border between Mali and Niger. 3 months ago, Maimouna fled her raided village in the Mali's Menaka region.
I used to hear about villages being attacked, about thieves killing people and stealing their cattle. But this time it was us. I had to flee with my 2 kids, but without my husband.
Some refugees are worried by European troops' exit from their country. These troops had offered substantial support to the Malian military.
I was used to seeing the white soldiers with the Malian soldiers. They need to stay to protect us.
Out of the camps, and despite their losses, some refugees are trying to rebuild communities, like here in Niamey. Zakou Karimou used to be the chief of a Malian village near the border.
The people I fled with, they still view me as their chief. But around here, and in Niamey, we do not even feel considered.
Most of the Malian refugees have had to travel through Tilaberi, which is one of Niger's most dangerous regions.
They just left the most dangerous area, but in Walam there can be an attack. Attacks can occur in every city in Niger. Actually, in every city of all 3 countries, in Burkina Faso and in Mali, the situation there is the same.
According to the UN Refugee Agency, at least 60,000 people who have fled the extremist threat in the north of Mali now live in Niger.
Now, the Khoi people of South Africa are deep in discussion about the best way to honour their ancestral lands around Cape Town. The construction of Amazon's African headquarters was temporarily suspended by the High Court this month. But while some don't want it to happen at all, others are keen for the jobs the development might bring. Our team reports.
This is a sacred land. So right here in our hands, the dust of our ancestors, get it lifted up.
Some Khoi leaders are holding a cleansing ceremony on a heritage site they are fighting to protect in court. Tariq Jenkins represents the Khoi people whose ancestors' cattle grazed these lands for centuries before the Dutch arrived here in 1652.
Where we are standing right now was where land was stolen for the first time in our country. The Dutch East India Company, which was then the largest company on earth, had gifted its employees land and farms here on these embankments. These rivers are our blood rivers that were fought against colonial powers. So it is a place that is of extraordinary spiritual and historical significance.
This is what they're trying to stop from going ahead. The construction of an almost €300 million mixed-use development with Amazon's African headquarters. The Khoi community is united to protect the site, but are divided about its future. Chief Senzile Khoison's group of traditional leaders signed an agreement with developers. It's because they've been promised the development will include a heritage cultural centre.
Because we were tired of gridlock, we were tired of our demands not being heard. And from engaging the developer, we were able to secure something that no other institution, specifically government, has ever promised us, has ever come to the party with, and that is a fully fledged, world-class First Nations precinct in the middle of a development.
The court has suspended construction until all parties have agreed, but the judgment has been appealed.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa. Thanks for joining us. Do so again. Take care.